So both of you guys go through this interrogation process. Raymond has a written statement. You do not have a written statement, but both of you get charged for this rape and assault.
Oh, yeah.
Now, at this point, there's sort of just like a frenzy happening in New York with the public really upset over this happening.
Yeah.
And considering that this is a white woman and a group of black kids, there's almost like an Emmett Till kind of comparison going on at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Trump ends up kind of starting the fire in the media.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely the fire starter. I mean,
Okay.
you know, he did
what
it,
does Trump do?
Well, he did it in the most grandest and most provocative way. You know, paying for ad space in New York City's newspapers, calling really for the reinstatement of the death penalty for our case. Now, mind you, as things progressed, our names, phone numbers, and addresses were also published in the newspapers.
Yeah.
So people started to, you know, call us any time of the day and night. People wrote us nasty letters telling us that they was going to kill us and our families. You know, all of that stuff was going on. And one media personality, I believe he was mentioned in the film, The Central Park Five, a guy named Pat Buchanan, he wrote what surmised to be that, you know what, let's take the eldest one, Corey Wise, and hang him from a tree in Central Park. And then let's take the others and horsewhip them. You know, so if you think about the whole, first of all, the language that was being used, the idea and the indication of what they were really trying to drum up. And I always say this because if we fast forward to today, the supporters who came out in support of Donald Trump, the people who really thought and think the way that they thought in terms of the viciousness and the anger that they had, that so-called black people and people of color were beginning to advance. You know, when you look at the hatred that came out of the woodwork, the people who uncovered themselves and said, hey, I'm here and I'll beat up people in the rallies, and I'll do anything and everything to make sure that the president becomes Donald Trump. You know, in terms of his whole candidacy, if we were able to look into the future at the future president of these United States, Donald Trump, nobody ever thought in a million years that Donald Trump would be here. But what I'm more afraid of is not Donald Trump himself, but the people who came out in support of Donald Trump. I believe that this same element was present back in 1989. This same element was present back in the Emmett Till case. This same element was present back in the Scottsboro Boys case. And I think it's more relevant to the Central Park 5 case and the Central Park Jogger case, because here we had a situation where our phone numbers, names, and addresses are being published in New York City's newspapers. Donald Trump takes out the full-page ad in 4 of New York City's major newspapers calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty. And people begin to call us. People begin to threaten us. People begin to tell us that we were going to die.
Yeah.
Now imagine if they had their way. They had our address. They could have come into our homes, hung us, drug us from our homes, and hung us from the trees in Central Park. And we would have, this story about the truth and what happened and everything would have never come out in the way that it came out. We'd have been ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys go to trial. It's a separate trial with you two, or no?
No. Both of us went to trial together. It was me, Ray, and Antron. They split it. They split it in half. It was really.
Yeah.
It used to be the Central Park 7. One guy gets off in a way.
It was more than that.
It was more. Yeah, it was. It
should have been Central Park 10 to 12.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But one guy, you know, he gets out, and then it was left down to 6 people. Raymond, Kevin, Antron, Corey, Kevin, Stephen.
You and Stephen.
Me and Steve, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they split it in half. Me, Antron, and Ray went first.
Yeah.
And we blow
so you
trial.
guys have your trial.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys have your trial. Were you guys offered a plea deal before the trial or no?
We were offered a plea deal. What happened was the lawyers came in during trial and they offered us a plea deal. And at that time, I had about 15 months in, maybe a little less. So I benefited from the plea deal. And they were saying that they was going to try to get us a 2 to 6 year prison sentence. But we all had to agree to do it. And so, you know, Yusef was the first one that said no. And we was like, well, Yusef said no, we all said no. So we didn't accept the plea deal. And then even after we blew trial, they offered me another deal to testify against Stephen Lopez, who became the third trial that you don't hear about.
Yeah.
And they offered me, you know, they said if I testified against him, they'll drop all my charges and let me go. And I was like, hell no, let Steve win and let him go home.
Yeah.
You know, but he wound up copping out.
Yeah, he got scared because, like, when, you know, the thing about it too is that when we lost, they were already doing a poll because they were trying us as adults.
Yeah.
They said, you know what, we're going to try these young people. Criminals are becoming younger and younger. And this was the beginning of lowering the age. This whole campaign that people are fighting against right now to raise the age back up. This was the beginning of lowering the age, where they were looking at people and saying, criminal activity is being done by people of younger and younger ages. So we need to charge these youngsters as adults. And so they were taking polls and saying, well, based on the charges that we had been convicted on, each charge carried a maximum of 3 1/3 to 10 years. So I know I think I got charged with maybe 2 major charges. So that meant that had things gone down the way that they wanted to go down, I would have been given 6 2/3 to 20 years for this crime that I didn't commit.
Yeah.
So at that point, we lose. The next trial is beginning, I think, and then Steve says, yo, man, I can't do that time like that. I'm not trying to do that. You know what? Let me just cop out to something that I didn't do, just so that I can get the heck up out of this situation.
Okay, so you guys both blow trial.
Yeah.
How many years do each of you get?
We get 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so the same sentence for both of you.
Yeah, same sentence, because like Yusef stated, we were charged as adults, but we were sentenced as juveniles. So you know how California has a 3-strike law? New York doesn't have that. But they do have what's called the predicate and the persistent. And so that set us up for our first felony. If we got another one, then we became a predicate felon. And if you got your third, you became a persistent. So we got our first felony at the age of 14 to 15 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you heard the judge give you the sentences, how did you guys feel?
It was unbelievable. Like, here we were, like, we was in, you know, when this case happened, there was about 400 articles written on us within the first 2 weeks of this case, dissecting our lives as 14 and 15-year-old kids, right? And everybody was quick to judge. These guys are guilty. They did it. You know, castrate them, hang them, put them under the prison system, let the dudes in jail rape them and kill them, you know. And so now, as the case is going along, because it takes about almost 1.5 years to get to trial, right? You know, when the DNA evidence comes back, because these guys, the police department took our handprints, right? They took fingerprints, handprints,
saliva,
footprints, saliva, hair sample, blood sample. They took all of our clothes and they test them against the samples that they have from the crime scene, and none of it matches. So now we go, okay, none of this stuff matches, and we thinking now that people will open their eyes and say, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And a very small percentage did. But majority said, nah, they said they did it, they guilty.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Trisha Millie, is that how you pronounce her name?
Yeah, Trisha Miley.
Trisha Miley. She ends up surviving the attack.
Yeah.
And I guess this also, as I'm looking through it now, it also included sodomy and everything.
Yeah,
all of that stuff.
It was
All of that.
really
We were
bad.
given 13 charges originally. And when we blew on all of them except for attempt murder charge. And then we just got sentenced on the 2 charges, which was rape and robbery.
Yeah.
Okay. So she actually comes into the courtroom and testifies.
Yeah.
But what, she was so badly traumatized that she doesn't remember what happened?
Yeah, they said due to the injuries that she suffered, she can't remember the events of that night.
She had total amnesia.
Yeah. So basically, she just really came in and testified based on what she was doing for recovery, and just for the jury, the jury could sympathize with her, and then look at us, because also we had these people in the courtroom who were drawing us every day, and they was drawing us looking like animals. So this is the visual that you get on TV on the 6 o'clock news when you sit there watching dinner and they talk about our case, and we're in there looking like little monsters.
Yeah.